What about this? Did the church canonize the right stuff? Now, canonization is a phrase we don't use a lot, but the canon actually refers to the books that made it into the Bible. And the argument I hear a lot once people discover, oh, there were other books that didn't make it into the Bible. How do we know we got the real story? How do we know that there aren't better accounts of Jesus or more accurate accounts of Jesus, or this isn't some conspiracy that basically the church wants you to believe something, so these are the books you need to read and don't read anything else? How do we know that the 66 books we read in what we call the Bible today are actually the most accurate books or even the right books that we should be reading?
Yeah, great question. By the way, serious scholars, trained scholars know the answer to that. They don't have any problem with it. It's the popular stuff, the Dan Brown stuff, the nonsense that gets out there that creates the confusion. There was no conspiracy. Emperor Constantine didn't choose the books in the Bible, even though that's said in the Da Vinci Code and all the rest of that. By the way, I have read all of the books left out of the Bible, okay? And I didn't grow a second head or a third eye. I have read all that stuff, the apocryphal stuff and all the rest of it. And so when I have a student come to me, and I've had that question asked many times, Professor Evans, why did they include these apocryphal gospels, Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Peter, Gospel of Philip, the Gnostic Gospels, and so on? And I said, tell you what, why don't you read them and come back in a week or two and you tell me. Every single time they come back, go, oh man, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, the church didn't make any mistake. These other writings are wonky and it's obvious. They lack verisimilitude. They clearly are not reflecting the real world, the early first century Jewish Palestine. This is not Jesus speaking. This is somebody else speaking, using his name. This is something else. It is weird. It is odd. It's unhistorical. So there is no serious scholar that sits down and says, oh my goodness, the church goofed. It should have included these other three writings. Nobody says that in the real scholarly world.
Okay, in the real scholarly world, I was going to say, because you go online, you can find some stuff very quickly that says, the church has this big conspiracy. Talk about verisimilitude. What does that even mean, verisimilitude?
It's two words, veri, V-E-R-I, veri, and then similitude. And you'll probably recognize that word, similitude meaning like parable or likeness, veri meaning the truth. So verisimilitude means that something is like the truth or the way it actually was or is. And a historian will look at a document and say, okay, is there verisimilitude here? Does this document reflect the way life really was in that time and place? And if it does, the historian will use the document. If it sounds like a fairy tale, Camelot, King Arthur, or something like that, they go, no, we're not using that. That doesn't help us. So that's what historians do. They evaluate documents. And looking for verisimilitude is what they're looking for. Now, learn that word. You who are students, learn that word. And then when you're at home with mom and dad, just sort of slip it into the conversation. They're going to go, whoa, you're getting a good education. I'm not, whatever the tuition is, it's not enough. That's what you want to do. Verisimilitude. Remember that.
So basically what that says, if I understand it right, if I was writing a book about today, and I pretended it was factual, but said, I got into my car and I flew to Toronto. People would go, oh, wait, we didn't have flying cars in 2016. And there are other gospels outside of the Bible that kind of have things like that?
Yeah.
Like what, for example?
Well, usually they're anachronisms, and what that means is something is out of it's not in its right time, as Carrie just said. So maybe it's a technology, maybe it's a political issue, maybe it's a fad, maybe it's a style of dress, maybe it's a type of food. Whatever it is, it's something out of its proper time. By the way, Muslims talk about the Gospel of Barnabas, okay? And the Gospel of Barnabas supposedly supports Muhammad's oddball teaching about Jesus that's in the Quran. Well, the Gospel of Barnabas was written in the 14th century. See? How do we know that? Because the Gospel of Barnabas quotes literature that was produced in the 12th and 13th centuries. It talks about wine stored in wooden casks, that's European and medieval, not in wine skins, which is in the time of Jesus. It's things like that. where it makes big mistakes. And you go, hey, wait a minute, this is a ringer. This is not true.
So it's like a movie where you're watching, a Roman army and the guy's got his wristwatch on.
Yeah,
right?
it's something like
it's
that.
Like, okay, that clearly was not shot in the first century.
No.
There's all kinds of problems with that statement.